Fidgets, you alright there now?
I don't know.
You know? I still my boy Fidgets there, so you good? Yeah.
I got a few problems here. So
I can
let me see how we go.
Let me see how we go. Hey everybody, how we doing? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. As usual, you're here in the living room with myself, Andre, my good friends Philip and Mark. Again, this is the living room. If this is your first time you're on the We Global platform, you're probably watching on Facebook or on YouTube. Either one, if you haven't followed our pages yet, hit like, hit follow, and then hit share. Bring in as many contacts as you can, and we'll just have a good old Caribbean conversation. This is what we do every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Caribbean time, or 2 p.m. if you're in Jamaica. If you're in the UK at the moment, 7 p.m., but in a few months, that will be 8 p.m. How we doing? Let's get to it, fellas. What's going on?
Doing good. I see.
You getting better at that, yeah. Getting. You take that scripted now these days.
Rolling, man. Yeah. Rolling.
I see y'all two are like the new political analysts in the
Listen, where you want me go now? I could go across the Caribbean now, yeah. Hey, Michael.
I won't go that far, Phil. I won't go that far. I would say political commentators.
Commentators, not analysts.
Okay,
Not analysts. Not analysts. Commentators. I don't know. You saying that in a good way or a bad way, though? Because depending on who you talk to.
Everything that comes in my mouth is usually in a good way.
I must admit, that is very true. If there's one thing I give you, it is that. I agree with that.
Where you was, though, on the night?
Wow.
Straight in.
I just could not stop
No,
at
waste
that.
of
Louis. Apologies for my absence.
Jeez.
I watched a little bit. But
And the people was calling for you, man.
Man, so much people ask what part Philip is.
Man, you know
No
what it's
way.
like when you're into. You know it's
Seriously.
Man, the
No, it's
people
like-
don't want to know what part you was, man.
Wow.
But that is right.
I did not expect that. But
Yes, indeed, they're asking already.
Hey, Didi, how you
It was
doing?
election night.
yeah. I was paying attention.
You was paying attention. But that was a good night. I know what time I get you next day, but oh Lord.
I got up at 1
The
o'clock.
part you was election night.
Regional, if not global. Very true.
We sit there and talk for 6 hours, yeah.
Listen, I'll be honest, right? I thought we were gonna probably do a couple hours. I didn't think so. I didn't think. I thought maybe 20, 30 people watching, because people gonna most likely watch the traditional media outlets, So I figure the bar ain't really be paying me no attention.
No.
Little did I know. Little did we know. Little did we know.
No. We could have bring another game.
You understand? You understand? Little did we know we would have had 300 or so hundred people or so watching me on the night. Over 4,000 views on both platforms individually. It was interesting. It was interesting stuff, But we gonna up a gear. We gonna up it again though. We got plans already after that, Michael.
Now that we know.
Now that we know, we gonna up it. We gonna up the game the next time. We got plans already. We got plans. But that was good. It was good. Interesting night.
Yeah, man. I thought so. Even reflecting on it over the past couple of days, it was an interesting night. But
Was that interesting?
I mean,
Okay.
well, it probably peaked a little early. After a couple of boxes, it was like, okay.
Yeah.
So this is
We see where this going. We see where this going. As St. John fall, it was like, okay.
this year done.
We see where this is so going now. So we just trying to entertain now after that, to be honest with you. It was interesting. Interesting coverage from the traditional or mainstream media, let's use that phrase. Mainstream media outlets in Barbados as well. Oh Lord. You see that there now? That cause listen,
Don't say that.
in Barbados the word glorious now can never be uttered again. I don't even know if people could sing it in church. I think if anybody singing the word in church now,
You don't even
everybody
know-
would just bust out laughing.
You
Jesus
don't
and
even
so
know
yeah.
that people serious enough to tell me. I don't know how to tell Blackman now. Is she serious? Is she a compliment?
You know she laughing at me,
Is she
or
being
is she
honest?
honest? Being honest. Exactly.
Genuinely glorious.
So if it was really glorious, or it was glorious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you ain't too sure. You ain't too sure. But that's all right. That's all right. But the night was interesting. I think at the beginning, we had said that we wouldn't be surprised by a 30-0 again. I think I was saying the only thing that would have surprised me is if the Democratic Party won the election. But that didn't even come
Shock.
close. So I didn't had shock. That would have been shock among shocks. I don't know what it would have do if that had happened. I'll tell you the truth, I don't even know what Barbados would have do if that had missed that happen, to be honest with you. Well, don't let me say the phrase "miss that happen," because don't let me think make anybody feel like after thing. I don't know what Barbados would do if that had happened. The world and the Caribbean would have been in complete shock if that had happened. But lo and behold, it wasn't even close to happening. So, kind of a as you were moment. So, I'll be attending the big speeches next week. Should be interesting.
Tomorrow, we should
Next-
hear
oh,
some
that's
big,
true.
big speeches tomorrow. Who's going to be in this glorious cabinet?
Yes.
At least initially.
Wow.
Sorry,
What I'm
man.
interested in is sort of the deeper analysis, looking at has the DLP, for example, gained any ground in certain areas and so on. I think that would still be sort of insightful if you could see from that campaign, is there even a small bit of a swing could reflect better the sentiment of a more well, not reflect better, but
I
give a
just
more
surprised.
complete picture.
I even know how to take this comment here now.
Believe me.
I saw it and I didn't bother. I just tried to call a straight face.
That's a glorious comment there, Sir Michael. Thank you.
Neither
Glorious.
went for a triplet. Insightful, informed, and in tune.
Insightful, informed. Listen,
Alliteration, man. Get in.
that's all right. I like to surprise people. That's all right. That's all right.
I
Hey,
think,
Betty.
I think regardless of how deep you look for those insights, Phil, there is a political wilderness ahead for the Democratic Labour Party that I think is going to be very, very hard ground to travel. And I think that was one of the sad things for me that came out of the night. Actually, I felt that
Hey,
there
Betty.
were a core of really good young people who put themselves forward, and I really commend the courage of young people who decide to put themselves forward in politics because it's bruising.
It could be.
But
Yeah.
I felt the rejection at the electorate is a really hard place for them, and whether or not the erosion of a 30-0 will do them so much damage that they might not necessarily, I don't know, stick around long enough to turn things around and see their vision become fruition. That was the sad bit of the night for me, really.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, I see some people saying the Democratic Labour Party's leadership wants to sort the leadership problem that they should be fine, and I completely disagree with that. I think the Democratic Labour Party, forgive you for just focusing on Barbados for a second here, folks. We just wronging out this election season. We had 4
Washing
weeks.
it down. Washing it
Yeah, we just finished that. Can bring that to end, then we can go on the rest of the Caribbean. But the DLP need a complete overhaul. Complete. I mean, from its constitution and governance perspective, needs to be completely overhauled. Yes, the leadership issue. There's an issue with unity within that party that you don't see from the Barbados Labour Party. I mean, I keep telling people the thing about the Eagle 17, the rumors about the Eagle 17 remain just that throughout the
Name
entire
one.
election.
Name one.
You understand? Anyone I name going to be just rumor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas you had on the Democratic Labour Party a former Minister of Finance who arguably whenever the Prime Minister talks about the last decade as referring to him, literally put out something on the eve of the election and pretty much cut whatever legs was left from the leadership of the Democratic Labour Party. So it tells you what's going on in that party, not just from leadership, but the entire thing, governance structure, unity,
Root
and
and
need a
branch,
root
man.
and branch, man. Root and branch clean out need to happen there. I don't think they should even bother to, at this point in time, as crazy as it may sound, I think for the next few months, I don't think you should really hear a peep from the Democratic Labour Party at this point in time. I think they just need to go in, reflect, and sort themselves out, and then come again. But it's going to be longer than I think.
Yeah,
it
and
needs to be longer than I think. Actually.
There's something doing the rumblings that I've noticed over the period of after the election as well, because everybody is now saying, get rid of the old guard, get rid of them, and I actually think that's a mistake personally.
Yeah.
Because I feel I feel you got to be multi-generational. I feel those guys have a role to play, but they just picked the wrong role in this election, because the youngsters in the party are not going to be able to reset it on their own, and they need a connection back to the strong legacy, and they need an understanding of how to get the machinery going. They can't do that on their own. But those guys can't be up front and visible. They have a role to play, but you got to define the right one for them. And
More
keep them
mentoring
quiet.
and
And
coaching.
keep them in
Yeah, and keep them quiet, because no, I don't know. I'm sure that it could have happened with the Barbados Day Party as well, with Sinclair did, but it didn't happen. So there's a question of unity. I don't know what the governance and stuff is within the Barbados Day Party, but you see how easy they get rid of Maria Eargard a couple of years ago, and they were looking to do the same to Owen too, but he decided that he jumped ship beforehand. I mean, I would die saying, no, let me use that word, but I would I'm just die saying that's strong. I would bet $1 million that Froon's getting up on the platform was not a central election strategy. I think it was a rogue moment.
that galvanized the whole of Barbados. But
I believe it was a rogue moment, because nobody in their right mind would have put him up there. And if they did, he had one job. 2018 was on me. Verla is the lead. New team, young,
yeah, give her your
a
support.
different way of doing things, different from me, completely different. 2018 was on me. Back this new team under this new leadership. Get them on the stage, off the stage, and never see you again. But to get up there now and talk about he got nothing to be ashamed about and using the G word. From now on, I think that's we can go. Wait, that come out wrong, because
You heard it here, folks. It's called the G word, right?
but
my dear.
I using that and actually talking a lot of nonsense. So, and I, as you say, I think that really galvanized what was a low turnout, 45%, but that 45% clearly decided, we know we'll be going here. And then the rest, well, you could argue another 20%, because generally the last one was about 60% that came out. But another 15 to 20% decide, you know what? Nah, I ain't bothering that. And assuming a huge percentage of that was a Democratic Labour Party vote, assuming, they might get a few seats. But nonetheless, the result was what it was. And we got to congratulate Prime Minister
Absolutely.
Mia Amor Motley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And the entire Barbados Labour Party.
And the entire Barbados Labour Party.
Yeah. So,
And the Alexandra man getting there too, so that's even better.
you must be very happy, man.
Yeah, man, yeah, we good. We take that. We take that. I don't know if there was any other Alexandrians in Parliament. I would have to do some research on that one, but he might be the first, I believe.
Well, I look
But
forward
it's
to
good.
see. I look forward to see what this young team is going to bring to the table, because the problems are significant and the challenges ahead are major. So we'll be watching, and we gotta watch, man, because there's no opposition. So somebody gotta hold people to account.
I
So,
think so.
be watching.
I don't think we got a choice. We got to hold to account and just let people know, look, we here. And again, holding to account is not to say you're not supporting your government, right? Because that people that seem to get that confused, of when you hold to account or critique or have a real strong opposition to something that's being done, all of a sudden is get the, so who you want? You want Verla? You want bathrooms? Ain't got nothing to do with that. Nothing
you
at
still
all.
need to have an opinion. You must have an opinion. And
Yeah.
you must be able to voice it without people thinking as though you shouldn't be saying what you think is right, or calling people and holding people to account.
agreed. And holding to account is also could also come from a point of high expectations. If you have high expectations for people and leadership, you do hold them to account, because you're expecting good things from them. And if something slips, then you're like, but I expect better. I expect a certain level of behavior and so on. So I have no issue with that. That's good.
Yeah, man, I think so. So long may we see Barbados thriving and growing into the period ahead of us and into this parliament. I want to see some changes, and I really hope that Prime Minister Motley will take on those big changes and really push the nation forward, man.
I hope so. I really do hope so. I guess the thing for the rest of the Caribbean too is, could this be? This is twice now. This is 30-0, well 60-0 now in Barbados. No
You want
opposition.
if you count St. George North.
Yeah,
You want straight.
you want to stretch it, and then you got Grenada as well. This has happened twice as well, back
Yes.
to back. So
It's
you
different.
wonder, do you think other people in the Caribbean might be looking at this and going, "Oh dear, oh dear," it might be interesting to see what happens. Who will appoint opposition senators? That's a good question. We probably need to bring a constitutional expert on this and see. But you never know. It all depends on if, it's a long, a day in politics is a long time. So by next week, you never know. Somebody might cross the floor and
Well,
decide, you know what?
Prime Minister Motley did make an attempt at the first 30-0 to revise the constitution, didn't she? And I don't think that was I choose my words carefully. I don't know if it was accepted by the DLP, but it remains to be seen what steps will be taken now as we go into this parliament, whether they may have a slightly different opinion.
Actually, it was offered, I believe. Well, I don't know if it was formally offered, but I remember one of the older DLP stalwarts, I believe it was Bobby Morris, actually, at the time, had said no, that they told the Democratic Party don't accept any opposition senators if it were offered. This was in 2018. That the DLP can win the opposition at the polls, which will come back soon, next time around. Well, next time around has happened. But now I see some people who were part of the Democratic Labour Party's government prior to 2018 saying that this time around, if offered, that they should accept it.
Well, we will see. And this is the thing that I think plagues the DLP. They've got to try and put some restraint on the elders, right? And stop them from running away with the message and the conversation. Otherwise, the young people who want to move the party forward would find themselves constantly having to line up behind a message or having to defend something that perhaps they
Thanks, Judy.
want to angle slightly differently.
So this is interesting. You say the president, but so given that our constitution has not changed, was that power within the governor general's hands before as well? Good question. I don't know, to be honest with you. But thanks, Judy, for letting us know that was I'm assuming that some constitutional expert wrote that and said it's the president and he gifted the president to do that. But as far as I know, the president's powers are exactly the same with that of the governor general.
Well,
So-
nobody has clarified anything for Bajans yet about the role of the president and the role of the governor general, because clearly we don't have a new constitution as far as I know. But under the existing constitution, I understand that this appointment can be made. I saw the article in the newspaper today as well. But there's clarity, I think, still needed for people around the status of our constitution in this new transitional arrangement with the republic.
I guess what you have got to do is understand when they say can be made, usually it was made at the on the suggestions of the prime minister and the leader opposition for the opposition senators, is who then suggests who the opposition senators should be. That's
I guess there's a difference between suggestion and an appointment. But
well,
what was the alternative?
Well, I don't know. I'm just asking questions. Okay. I think this is the kind of questions. Don't get me wrong. I ain't questioning because I got the answer. I'm questioning because to me, these questions that you ask.
Yeah. Agreed.
My time in the absence, I said, okay, so somebody said that yes, Elvis said the president has the power to appoint, but I know they have the power to appoint, similar to the governor general. But is it that she also decides who they are? And there's a very thing because the president appoints all senators at the suggestion of the prime minister for thing senators, or at the suggestion of thing, and then the opposition and the prime minister will usually agree on independence. As far as I know, I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. But I'm sure somebody will come in and tell us.
The one thing that we can't, before we go off of Barbados, that we can't let slip from our sight was something that I thought was really unfortunate on election night, actually, and it was a comment made by Liz Thompson.
Has no seat.
Let's play this because this was
Mr.
actually.
Pisa has run in repeated elections and been rejected in every constituency in which she has run. She has no political base. And I said on the political platform that the only thing left
Thanks,
for her
Linda.
to do is to go to the cement plant, get a boat, and go to Africa to see if she can get a seat there. But clearly the people of Barbados.
Wow.
Whoa. Yes, that
What
was
was the last thing
interesting.
you said about clearly the people of Barbados? How did it end? You remember?
I can't remember what she said there at the
But
end.
I would assume it was something has rejected her.
But yeah, Barbados is pretty much
Yeah.
that was disgraceful.
Terrible, man. And completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
But, there's been so little outcry about it. And I always feel that people like Liz, who represent Barbados, she's an ambassador, she represents Barbados at the United Nations. She is part of the government that is trying to build bridges with Africa and who are trying to tell Bajans, look, the next great frontier that we are going to go after as a people will be around the continent of Africa. But in the same breath is then so I mean, how disgusting is what she's just said there, and it's totally unnecessary. Well, yeah, you're right, Michael. Totally disgusting and insulting.
I guess even more, not even more, just as crazy is that on the night, no one on that panel pulled her up for saying it. And the panel, and I think that was on CBC, Barbados, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And to me, it was a panel full of Barbados Labour Party supporters and what's not.
You're right there, Elvis.
And nobody at all on that panel put her up. In other words, one has to wonder the connection of the vision of Prime Minister Motley, whose vision is very much closer ties with Africa. Even going across and I think burying the flag in Ghana and what have you. And for that statement to be made and no one on that panel even disassociated himself from the comment, answer, even if to clarify and say, but we don't want to disparage African nations. Because let's be frank, it was made in a very disparaging manner and an insulting manner. It wasn't a case of saying, oh, she need to leave the country.
Yeah.
It was a case of go to Africa, and there's a connotations there when you put the go to Africa phrase.
The lesser
Yeah,
place.
but people should be outraged about
Exactly.
that. And people should
Nobody's
be calling
outraged by
about
it.
that.
Nobody's
Not-
outraged by it. And nobody, I don't see a meme about it. I don't see it circulating on WhatsApp. I don't see it circulating on Facebook, all that kind of stuff. But yet, all through the elections, every time, and let's be honest, someone from the Democratic Party made a slip up or mistake, a Freudian slip or what have you, was all over Barbados and what have you. And that tells you a little bit of what's going on in Barbados at the moment, where people are thinking and how. When I use the word dangerous, I use it loosely, but how dangerous a position we could be in where there seems to be nothing that the Barbados Labour Party can do that people have any outrage about, other than a little sentence saying, I don't like how she handled that. And that's about it.
That's not good enough.
But anyway, we'll see where that goes. Phil, you were going to jump in?
No, I was just going to say, she also said, as she said, on the campaign platform, which means this was not the first time.
No.
She actually said that.
She was repeating it. Absolutely.
So yeah, it is really worrying. But as people always telling me at home, you don't live home, you don't know what it's like.
Man, don't accept that. Listen,
I accept it because
I'm accepting that.
We don't have the same sentiment. We don't have the same sentimental connection to what people are feeling at home to adjust our emotional response to things like that.
Now look,
But
I have some empathy for that.
listen, somebody told me so about 10 years ago. I remember somebody told me so on Facebook or something, and I got real mad here, but you don't live out here and all that kind of nonsense. But in the years that have passed, I've kind of dug my heels in a little bit because I actually feel, I might not understand some of the nuance of what's happening on the ground, but I have an opinion. And
Which is
I
funny.
have a strong opinion about certain things that I see in Barbados, so you're not going to shut me up about it, because I think people sometimes feel because you're not physically there, you don't know what's going on about here. Ridiculous.
I don't think it's not knowing what's going on, but not feeling it. I think there's a difference between knowing and seeing what's going on and feeling it. And our emotions and our logic can sometimes be at war with each other. and I do think there's if for us we're not living there,
Thanks, Susan Downs. I saw your comment.
it's not easier, but it's more likely that we would have a less emotional influence on how we call things and observe things
I
than someone
suppose.
who is there and who's
I
been through
suppose, but
those G years.
I suppose, but in response to that, you don't need to be home, or you could be anywhere in the world and understand what that mean, and be outraged by the statement, irrespective of irrespective of political affiliations or how you feel how bad things was back in the
I,
last decade or what have you.
I don't
In
mean
relation to that statement in general,
yeah. I don't right. I meant broader than that particular
broader than
statement.
that.
Because that
Okay,
statement is insulting and everybody should be outraged by it. But I meant
indeed.
in response to what you said about it feels as though there is nothing that the Barbados Labour Party says that causes a outrage in people, like as though they can get away with anything. And I
Yeah,
think
bite
that's
too easy.
framed by the emotional connection that we might not have with that particular period and
Indeed.
how things are.
Well, no, that. Thanks, Susan. I hope people saw that one in the comment. Thanks for clarifications. That's always good to know. Look, sometimes you just got to ask the questions that people in general are asking. And sometimes it's good to have clarification for people. But look, we can go all across the Caribbean and look at some stuff and see what's happening. And we can have some friends dropping in and oh, that was not a good picture to be stuck on there, Mark. I don't know if you can see yourself, but
Look at the man.
I want to move it, right? But I so tempted to just leave it. I just
Tell them I frozen, man.
But look, we can be going all across the Caribbean in the way how we have some conversations today. But then sometimes we can get some people to drop in. And one such person is a new friend to us here, Sanjay Lewis out of Jamaica, a morning host, a talk show, as well as a lecturer. And we're going to bring him in, hear what's going on in Jamaica, his views maybe on what's happening in Barbados. I'm sure Jamaica has some views on that. I saw so many comments coming out of Jamaica on Barbados recent elections and all kinds of stuff. Today is just where we can just go around the region on different topics and have a different conversation. You guys across the region, if there's anything that you're observing and you might want us to bring it up, just drop it in the chat. We can have a discussion about it. As I said, this is just conversation. We just chatting. All right, so let's bring in Sanjay.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hey, Sanjay, how you doing? Welcome him, guys, into the chat as well.
Thank you. I've been listening. Very interesting discussion as it relates to what's happening in Barbados.
Hey,
Okay.
how is Jamaicans being reacting and seeing? Well, how do Jamaicans see Prime Minister Mia Mottley?
Well, the thing about it, you have quite a number of Jamaicans who are very supportive of Prime Minister Motley because they look
Right.
at her as someone who is not only defending what's happening in Barbados, but also as a regional leader. I do understand the challenges that exist in Barbados and the split and the challenges that individuals will have of Mayor Motley. But from a Jamaican standpoint, especially with her presentation at COP 26 that recently ended, I think she got a lot of foothold in Jamaica, where Jamaicans support Mayor Motley even more so than before because of how she operated at COP 26 that recently concluded. But largely, I find that Jamaicans are happy that Mayor Motley won. Of course, you will have pockets of individuals who may not necessarily support Mayor Motley, but I think the overwhelming support here in Jamaica is for Mayor Motley.
That's good.
And do you think there are particular things going on in Jamaica right now, not just with politics, but culturally and so on, things that people are looking for in leadership that they might be seeing in Mia Motley and how she moves and responds and represents?
That's precisely it. And I think that is why you recognize that Jamaicans are supporting Mia Motley because of her response to a lot of world leaders. And as I said, I think COP 26 was what many Jamaicans looked at as the launching point to say, hey, let's look at this individual because she's not afraid to stand up to what would be called the bigger countries. And Jamaicans are really appreciative of that, just how her general response is. And looking back to how the diplomatic relation exists and how here in Jamaica, how our leaders sometimes react to the bigger or the superpowers, they are pleased with her management and how she responds. And I think that is one of the reasons why you recognize that she's gaining such support here in Jamaica because of how she articulates the points, how she will defend Barbados and the Caribbean at large. And Jamaicans are happy about that.
Yeah, I see your reggae stars been writing songs for her campaign, and I saw the message from Sensi and all kind of people. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? What's going on here?
Well, I wouldn't even use that as something to say that there's great endorsement because the reggae stars normally, regardless of which political party, it's all about money and
whoever paying. Yes, exactly.
But separate from that, though, the people of the country, they are particularly appreciative of just her management in terms of from a Caribbean perspective and defending the Caribbean.
Are there things? Do you think they're comparing her to Wholeness sometimes as well? And
they do. They do.
Right.
That must really
and what's the general sentiment when you compare?
I was sort of asking that, but
look. So let's put it this way: the Barbados Labour Party is aligned to the People's National Party here in Jamaica. The People's National Party, of course, is a party that is in opposition, and because they're the party in opposition, they will push the Mia Motley card. And that is what you find that is happening. So the supporters of the PNP, they will push and support a Mia Motley because they align themselves to the Barbados Labour Party. Those who are supportive of Andrew Holness, of course, they would be anti-Mia because the PNP is pushing this argument of supporting Mia and Mia being the savior of the Caribbean.
Okay. Okay. But is the leader, the opposition from the PNP, anything like Mia in some of the things he says, or he's just using it as a little bit of opportunistic timing?
Well, I mean, I think that he's using it as the timing is right. And I think that he's utilizing that to push forward the case that, look, we need to look away from the JLP, which is the ruling party, and look at the People's National Party. And he's using Mia Motley as the launching pad to support his cause here in Jamaica and to see how he can get support for his political party here in Jamaica.
Okay. Welcome back, Carvin.
Yeah, good, man.
So Sanjay, you come in the living room and we just firing questions at you. But tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Exactly, yes.
What sort of things you get up to?
But when he came in, he started off straight away, so we just dive in.
Pick up drinks and start talking. I was like,
he comfortable. He comfortable. That's good.
Well, I lecture politics at a university here in Jamaica, University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, and I'm also a talk show host on one of our major radio stations here in Jamaica, Power 106, which is part of the RGR Communications Group. Yeah.
Cool.
So you're a man with your finger on the pulse.
Well, I mean, you have to. Hosting
Of
a current
course.
affairs show, you have to know what's happening in the country, and also having students who want to know more about politics and what the politics is about. You have to be studying not only what is happening in Jamaica, across the Caribbean, but just generally across what is happening in the world.
So what is top of the mind for
big things
people
now?
in Jamaica now, man?
Well, the big thing now in Jamaica is all about the Maroons and the argument about sovereignty. And currently what is happening in Jamaica, the Maroons of a compound, led by their chief Curry, his argument is that they are sovereign. And the government is saying they aren't sovereign because at the end of the day, we are one country. And the idea of sovereignty is a long-standing issue here in Jamaica, but it's back to the fore because of the Maroon community in a compound getting a new chief, and that chief pushing this idea of them being sovereign and they should be recognized. And the Prime Minister of the country is saying, we can't recognize you. You're not independent. You're part of Jamaica. And the laws of Jamaica are very clear. And the argument that they're putting forward about being a sovereign nation, it doesn't hold. And I know that they're hinging on an existing treaty that would have been signed between them and Britain many years ago.
Yeah.
But there are other things that we have to look at. And we have had test case here in Jamaica in 1956, for example. You had Maroon, which was a former um, leader in a compound. He brought it to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal ruled that they, in essence, are governed by the laws here in Jamaica. But Chief Curry is still putting the information forward, or trying to put this thing that they are sovereign and they ought to be recognized as independent of Jamaica, which is what I think he's heading at.
He's heading
And
us, yeah.
but the Prime Minister made it absolutely clear there is only
None of that,
one
yeah.
country,
Yeah.
and that is not going to happen.
But
That's
what,
the Prime Minister's response. But what do people feel? How are people? Is there support from within the rest of Jamaica for them, or?
I wouldn't say the foothold that they have in the rest of the country is great. You have a few individuals who would say, leave the Maroons alone, let them do what they have to do. But
Yeah.
I think majority of the individuals within the legal circle have said, look, their argument is not based on any facts, and what exists, they can't stand on what exists. So if you speak to many of the constitutional attorneys, they have made it absolutely clear that the argument that the Maroons put forward, based on that existing treaty, cannot stand. And even if we were to use that existing treaty, after that, they would have signed another treaty in 1842 called the Maroon Allotment Act. And that, in a sense, would have nullified a lot of the things that they would have signed in that existing treaty back in the late 1700s.
so what is the trigger for the current issue coming to?
I was gonna say, Mark, even before you answer that, let's go back to come forward. Explain a little bit for our audience the Maroon community in Jamaica, a little bit of the history, and then come forward to perhaps where that thinking of sovereignty may have come from.
Sure. So looking back at the history, what would have happened prior to us gaining independence? You had a group of individuals who would have relocated to Jamaica, and they were trying to get a foothold in the country. What happened is that the Brits at the time recognized that these individuals were gaining a foothold in the country. They signed an agreement to say, okay, we will give you certain lands within the country, and by you getting those lands, you would not try to get other runaway slaves to be a part of your grouping. Any runaway slaves, you would turn them back over to us.
Right.
Right? So they got that treaty was signed, and the agreement was they would stay in that part of the country, which is called the Maroon lands, and they would be able to do certain things on their own without being interfered by the Brits. So that's how the genesis of it began. After that happened, now when the treaty was signed, they weren't troubled by the Brits. But when that treaty was signed, and then you had the other treaty that I spoke about in 1842, which is the Maroon Land Allotment Act, it in essence, the Brits said to them that, look, even though we know you can enjoy certain privileges being part of the community and having the land within the Maroon area, you are still governed by the principles of the country, the laws of the country. And that's what the Maroon Lot Agreement indicated. So the Lot stipulated that Maroons were subjects of the British Crown, and they were entitled to all the rights, the privileges, and immunities of British subjects, which is why this argument that the Maroons have a foothold and they can gain sovereignty is null and void. Because if you read the Maroon Land Allotment Act, it was very clear. The Brits made it very clear that, look, you are subjected to all the rules as everybody else living in the country. Moving forward, though, they are hinging on that existing treaty that, look, we enjoy certain privileges, we fought for these privileges, and as such, even though Jamaica is now independent, we are still able to deal with and govern our own business within this space. The truth is, for many years, the Jamaican government allowed them. They allowed them to do what they wanted to do within the confines of that space. Recently, they have had a new chief, which is their de facto leader, who is pushing this argument that we are sovereign, and as such, we ought to be recognized by Jamaica as a sovereign state. And the Jamaican government is pushing back now to say, we can't recognize you. So even though you have that treaty that would give you certain privileges within the confines of your space
Right.
to
Okay.
push the card that you're independent can't fly.
Wow.
That's interesting. And are they different? Are they all in that one space, or are they different factions? I saw some reading. I saw there were some meetings, and not all the chiefs were there, or three colonels, and
Correct.
some were left out. Are they different factions? Are they?
Right. So you have different Maroon communities here in Jamaica. So the ones that really at the heart of the discussion would be the ones in a compound. And they are the ones led by their new chief that is pushing this card of them being independent or want to be independent and claiming that they are sovereign. So that's where the argument is. The other Maroon communities, they are not they're not so forceful about this idea of being
Sovereignty.
sovereign, right? So it's really been pushed by Richard Curry from the Akompong Maroon.
So
Well,
would any decision from the stance taken by Mr. Curry be then cascaded across the rest of the Maroon community, or is it not likely that they will line up around that?
Well, it seems, based on a recent meeting that was had, that they are not, and they have claimed that by them meeting with the Prime Minister, so the other Maroon communities, and you have communities in Scotts Hall, you have also in Charlestown, so there are other areas. They met with the Prime Minister, I think it was on the 21st of January, and the Prime Minister, in essence, while we don't know what exactly happened at that meeting, what individuals are now saying is it that the Prime Minister is trying to get those chiefs to line up and
Divide.
agree with him and to divide Chief Curry.
Politics.
But they are saying that by meeting with the Prime Minister, there is no indication that they are supporting what is happening in a compound. But the Prime Minister invited them to a meeting and they agreed. As to why Chief Curry, if he was invited, we don't know, because the Prime Minister is yet to respond. So the OPM, the Office of the Prime Minister, issued a release to say, we have met with all these chiefs, but we recognize that Chief Curry wasn't a part of it. So we don't know if he was invited.
So that's very interesting. So tell us a little bit, go back to the history again, about how has the integration been working historically with the Maroons and the wider community?
Well, for a very long time, it has been a seamless process. They participate in our elections. They utilize our services. There was never any division. So yes, you may have pockets that come up now and again with individuals saying that, look, we need more rights and freedoms and all that. But generally, there was this acceptance that there would have been a treaty that was signed. The government and successive administration would have recognized the treaty. But at the same time, it was a seamless thing where they utilize our services, but they have some latitude to do what they want to do within their community. The problem that we're having now, so it was never an issue really, and the government would have provided support to the Maroons. The problem that we're having now is with this leader who believes that we need to take it a little further, and we need to exercise a foothold that we are indeed sovereign, and we probably, I'm not sure if that's where he wants to go, but maybe possibly look at being independent.
Yeah, and I guess they pay taxes like everybody else into Jamaica,
Right.
and
So they pay taxes into Jamaica, but what they have been doing in a compound is that recently they developed their own currency. And our Bank of Jamaica indicated to them that, look, it's not a legal tender. The only legal tender in Jamaica is the Jamaican currency. So you developing your own currency is of no
piece of
value,
paper worth nothing.
right?
Yeah.
So if they want to use it in their community, fine. But the Bank of Jamaica indicated very clear that we will not accept it. They also developed this thing where they have their ministers. They have their Minister of Foreign Affairs and their different ministers separate from us here in Jamaica.
Brilliant.
Wow.
And the Jamaican government, they indicated that, look, we have only one Minister of Foreign Affairs. So even if the Maroon community want to say that they have their minister, it's the minister within their location, and that's about it.
This is messy.
Nothing else.
This could get very
So
messy.
they're,
very,
they're,
very
they're
quickly.
already acting sovereign. In any
Exactly.
instance.
Which is why when the Prime Minister, journalists asked the Prime Minister recently, when the Prime Minister responded that, look, we are a unitary state. There is only one Jamaica. There are individuals who were very supportive of the Prime Minister to finally put this matter to rest. Yeah, but it's causing more contention now because, again, it seems those who are opposed to the Prime Minister is saying he's taking a divide and conquer attitude where he's basically putting aside those who in a compound to say they are not ostracize them in a sense. That's the argument. So those who are supportive of Chief Curry saying the Prime Minister is trying to divide. Yeah, but others who are supportive of the Prime Minister saying, look, it's full time we have the political leader of the country be very clear in stating that, look, you are not independent, you are not sovereign, and you are part of Jamaica.
Well,
do people think that Prime Minister Holness is perhaps not being as strong as he needs to be in this particular argument?
he sounds pretty strong to me.
His statement, I think it was last week when he made the statement, if I remember serves me correct, he came across pretty strong. Individuals were very appreciative of that. But similarly, you have those who, on the other side, are saying that he came across too strong. And instead of being all-inclusive to say, come to the table and let's speak, he's trying to divide.
Yeah.
So it depends on which side of the political spectrum you fall.
Yeah, I got that from when I read his comments. I thought it was pretty forceful, actually. I was like, shouldn't you more be trying to strike a bit of a, even though of course you might have you might have your opinion and you're going down not happening, but I would thought you would try to strike a more collaborative, come let's talk tone to the public initially, especially with that whole divide quote unquote strategy of not allowing Curry, not having him at the meeting. Don't want to say not allowing, not having at the meeting. You would think you would say, hey, there's room at the table for discussions. We can open and think that here's where I think the most of Jamaica is. We want one Jamaica, one strong Jamaica, We recognize the rights and what have you of the Maroon people. But to me, he went down the road of not but here.
I think part of the problem, and for those who are in opposition, the People's National Party, that's the approach that they indicated that the Prime Minister should have taken, as opposed to what he did, which is the divide and conquer. And then others are saying, look, this issue has been put to rest many years ago from 1956, and why are we having it again? The Prime Minister just needs to put on his foot, make it very clear that we're not accepting you and the arguments that you're putting forward. So it depends on which side of the spectrum you fall.
The question I would have there is what does the Maroon community and leadership bring to the table in terms of bargaining power, right? Slavery is over. So it's no longer a safe haven for slaves. What do they bring as, let's say, the cultural capital to that discussion?
And I think that's the argument too. Individuals have said, do we really need to? And I will put it bluntly, what some have said, do we really need to waste time on this, which is a non-issue, when we have other pressing things that are happening in the country? Okay. Because do they really contribute that much to the country that we need to be spending all this time? And on the other side, individuals will say, look, culture is important, and there's some history there, and we need to not put them aside because they need to be part of the general culture and history of the country.
But would sovereignty sort of augment and amplify that cultural contribution?
I don't think it would. I don't think that they have the resources. I don't think that they have the support to even look in the direction of being sovereign. Because at the end of the day, look, the Maroons in a compound, if they need to go to the hospital, they have to exit their community to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
If they need support from the police, they have to exit the community to go to our police. If they need to travel, they're going to utilize all the services. They vote in our elections. So at the end of the day, they are very much part of the country. And to say that they want to move to become a sovereign nation, there are certain things that must exist before you even have the discussion about being sovereign.
But is this really an opening gambit of a negotiation for something else, though? Could it, as you said, everything you just said just now, it said, leave the community to access this, leave the community to access that. Could it be that this is the opening gambit to say, listen, there's some development that need to happen within this community? We need funds. We need a strategy. We need something that's going to infrastructure to develop our community. And since you're not doing it, we want the wherewithal to do it ourselves. And is that potentially a direction that we go in, and it's just an opening thing for some negotiations there?
That's one of the argument that Chief Curry put forward. That look, yes, the Jamaican government would have provided support back in the past to help us to maintain the culture and the history within the community, but they are not doing enough. So his argument is he's trying to open the conversation where we can look on better funding. And Jamaican government is saying, look, if you are going to push and want to become sovereign, we ain't going to spend our money there. And we ain't going to give you the support that you desire if that is the approach that you're going to take. We have no problem if you recognize that you are still a part of Jamaica and require additional funding, which they have been getting funding from the country. That's a different conversation. But if you're going to talk about wanting to be sovereign, we are not going to spend more on a compound for you or to assist you to become a sovereign nation.
Is the Maroon community a constituency in the parliament or no?
So they're part of a bigger constituency. So the constituency spans not only the Maroon community, but other communities outside of that space.
So they don't have their own voice in parliament.
They don't have their own voice in parliament. No, they have a political representative that their section of a compound falls in a bigger constituency.
And you talked there about the government providing support to the Maroons historically. What has that support historically looked like?
The support really is trying to preserve the culture that they have there. I know, for example, each year they would have annual celebration. The Jamaican government would pump resources to assist them in bringing off the yearly event that they would have. And we understand here in the country that there is history. And you have individuals that will travel to the country to go to the Maroon communities to understand the history. So therefore, the government will pump and have pumped resources for that cause. Because again, historically, we want to preserve what we have so that individuals are aware of it and those who are studying. Because I remember when I was in high school and the yearly event that they have, it's a big spectacle. And the Jamaican government, through the culture ministry, would invest in ensuring that the event is successful. So in terms of that, and then the other bigger issues, for example, ensuring that you provide the water, roads, and all those things. From a
infrastructure.
bigger perspective, the government would assist from that end.
Do they? I would assume that from a tourism perspective, there's a lot of tourism that goes through that community from people. Do they participate? Do they benefit? Do the funds get repatriated? Sorry to use that phrase, into the community.
So that's part of the problem that Curry indicated. He said that while tourists would visit the community and while the government overall is benefiting from the tourism,
the money would be spent outside.
It's not coming back to the community.
It's not coming back to the community. And that was one of his biggest arguments to say, look, you're utilizing our culture. You're putting forward what we're doing here within the Maroon community, within our on the international scene. Why is it that we're not benefiting more from what we're doing?
Yeah.
And that's the argument.
Yeah. So if I circle back to my question then of why now? What is the motive for
the leader?
Just because the new leader has arrived.
Yes.
He has a new vision.
So he has a new vision and he's putting forward that vision that for many years we have not received what we ought to receive, and he's putting forward that. Because you recognize when you look at the other Maroon communities, they could put forward a similar argument. But you're not getting that from them. You're only getting it from the Maroons that fall part of who are in a compound. So that's the problem. So I would.
That's interesting.
I'm also wondering if there's a even bigger vision around decolonization, because the Maroon communities across the region, they feel like our actual link back to our African heritage directly, because a lot of their traditions and the things that they hold dear within their culture actually trace right back to Africa, because they were able to maintain those traditions. Do you think there is a sort of, let's say, a positioning towards trying to lead that conversation towards decolonization of our lands?
I've heard that argument. The truth is we have been decolonized. Looking back and tracing the history of all of that. I think the argument is for those that form part of a compound is that for many years, we have allowed the Jamaican government to ignore what we have, ignore the treaty that would have been in existence, that we would have fought for, and that we have signed and agreed upon. And I think what they're saying, it's now time. Well, Chief Curry is saying that it's now time that it be recognized. But I think largely, when you look at our history, I think that we have agreed and respect the whole process of decolonization. And I think that we're very appreciative of it. So I don't think that they're fighting a different cause than what we're doing in the bigger country and in the country at large. I think that it's again Chief Curry, and what he's trying to put forward, and his mandate. His mandate is different.
Interesting. This is really interesting. And guys in the audience, I don't know if anyone's visited a Maroon community on Visit to Jamaica. Let us know. Let us know what you think. I think Michael put an interesting question there, and I don't want to say it's not necessarily relevant, but we know the ganja industry across the region is now beginning to take hold. Is there any issues regarding the Maroon community and participating in that as well?
Yeah, so when he became leader, that was one of the things that he brought up, that he believes that they can thrive from that industry. And understanding what we're seeing in the marijuana sector, he believes that maybe it's time that they recognize that they have a foothold from that aspect of it. And as such, it's one of his platform.
He wants control. He wants to control their own funds and stuff. Okay.
So he wants control because it goes right. Because again, remember where we started. His argument is the government of the country would have made so much of the Maroon community, and they are not spending it back on the community. So the economic argument, I think, is at the heart of what he's trying to put forward. Why he wants some form of sovereignty.
I can see it now. Now we had this. I can. We
sense.
peel back the onion. I can see all the different things that are going on in that conversation.
So look, you talk about other things happening in Jamaica, but we don't often get Jamaicans here to come and talk to us about what's
I was
happening
going to
in
say
Jamaica.
that. I was going to use the opportunity now.
Yeah, we're gonna come to the COVID situation in a moment, but I want to tackle this one that Michael mentioned, really just about universities and how many there are in Jamaica.
So currently we have the University of the West Indies. Naturally, we have the University of Technology, we have the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, and one other. So there are 4 main universities that I can think of the bat, but you have many other smaller groups that are either colleges or in the transitional phase of becoming a university. So for example, you have the Micro University College that they are in the process of transitioning to a full university. And then what you recognize too, you have a lot of overseas universities that have set up shop here in Jamaica where individuals will sign up and decide that they want to do classes with them. But I'm just quickly thinking, that we have probably 4 main universities here in Jamaica, but it doesn't mean that we don't have other small universities about the place. And you have a lot of colleges here in Jamaica.
That's interesting. And Judy asked this question here as well. You got your first female defense chief recently as well. What's the mood like where that's concerned? And what's her background? Well, I don't know. Well, I know her background. She's been in the military. But stupid question. But anyway.
Right. So many Jamaicans are happy about the new chief of staff. She was sworn in on Thursday. She's Rear Admiral Antoinette Weems Gorman. And it's a very historic moment for us because she's the first female to take the helm of running our defense force here in Jamaica. She's been in the army for many years. If my memory serves me correct, I think it's about 38 years that she would have been in the army. So people are happy about that. Again, anything that comes to the rights of women and women moving forward, that's a good thing here in the country. So many Jamaicans are very appreciative of what is happening. And there's great expectation as to what she will bring to the fore in making certain changes to the defense force here in Jamaica.
What kind of changes are people advocating for and looking forward to?
Well, I mean, largely we have had, as you recognize, a serious crime problem here in the country. And we have had a lot of joint police and military operation. And for many years, individuals look at the military, their approach as being tough. And they are hoping that she will bring to the table a change to how they operate, how their behavior towards the Jamaican populace, which is something
Okay.
that we recognize that is changing, by the way, based on what we're seeing. But there's still this hope that, greater support from her as a female, to bring certain changes that would be necessary to change just the mood and how they treat individuals in the wider society. But largely speaking, I don't think many Jamaicans are so focused on the JDF. Yes, we have a new chief of defense force, but okay, yes, she's a woman. We are happy about that. But to say what is it that they are asking for, you don't have a lot of talk as it relates to that.
Okay.
You, Phil, you were gonna ask something just now.
No. I'm thinking about that particular. Actually, yeah, I'll say something.
Yeah, jump in, man.
You said because she's a woman, they're looking for people being treated better by the defense force and so on. Why wait until a woman? It's very similar to some of the conversations we were having 2 weeks ago about women in power
And leadership.
versus women in leadership. And I'm wondering if that could also be that
It's
situation
it's
as
the
well.
same thing. It's the same thing. Looking at women in power, and there's sometimes this expectation
Yeah.
that a female being there, they will probably bring a more softer approach
Yeah.
towards management. I think it's a general thing that we look at, even when, and I think you had the same thing in Barbados. It's
Yeah.
a similar situation that individuals just believe that sometimes if you have a female, they sometimes bring a different energy to a
Yeah.
position. And also, for many years, they have had males as the leader. So they want to see what is it different that a female
And they
will
been doing
bring.
none. You mentioned the crime in Jamaica, which is something which
Yes.
unfortunately we had a show probably about a year ago or so now, when we were talking about and looking at people in different other Caribbean islands and what would prevent them from moving or the perception they have.
Sure.
Along with the natural beauty and the culture of Jamaica, one of the things that always come to mind is crime. Do we see that getting any better? Is this year been any better? Is, what's being done to help alleviate
Well,
that situation?
Well, we have a serious situation as it relates to crime here in Jamaica, and I think that is known across the region and the world. In fact, there is a great concern now that we have started the year on the wrong foot. In 17 days, we have had 72 individuals being murdered, and it's a problem that continues. Now, the current government, they are pushing this idea of having what is called state of public emergency. But they need the support of the opposition because the constitution is very clear. While the government, through the governor general, can declare a state of public emergency, it can only be for 14 days. In order to get the extension, you have to bring it to parliament, and you need two-thirds support of both houses of parliament. Recently, we had a SOE that was declared. It was brought to the parliament. The government, they have the majority in the lower house of parliament, but when it reached to the Senate, they would need the support of at least one senator from the opposition side. They didn't receive it, and as such, we no longer have the state of public emergency. The government's argument is we are not living in normal time, and because we're not living in normal times, we require the need to have the SOE. And by having the SOE, what it in essence will do is that the soldiers can be on the road without the support of the police. They can arrest anyone that they determine. They don't have to have a reason, and they can detain for a much longer period than if a SOE is not in effect. What the opposition is saying is that the way the government is utilizing the SOE is unconstitutional, because a matter was brought to the court as it relates to detention and how long the government would have detained, through the police would have detained individuals under the SOE. The opposition, the court ruled that the way we have been utilizing and how we have been detaining individuals would have been unconstitutional, and as such, the police had to release those under that SOE who would have been detained. The opposition is saying on a much broader basis, when you look at the judgment, while the judge did not rule on if the way we're utilizing the SOE is constitutional, when you read the judgment, it can be assumed that the judge is also saying the way we are utilizing the SOE is unconstitutional. The government is saying the judge did not rule on if the SOE is constitutional or not. The judge ruled on the fact that you cannot detain individuals indefinitely, and they have fixed that aspect of it. But the government is not getting the support of the opposition.
But surely a state of emergency is a short-term measure that is not going to get to the root of the overall crime situation as it's happening. So what is the government actually planning in terms of a strategy to address the problems of the society?
So that's precisely the argument that the opposition put forward. The opposition is saying this is supposed to be a short-term measure. We can't be under SOE extensively. The government is saying, look, it is part of the wider strategy that we're employing. We have to put a stop to the number of individuals being killed, which is, we're not in normal times. That's the government's argument. However, the government is also saying they are doing the investment. They're investing in technology. They're getting more police. We call them boots on the ground. We are giving them necessary technology, as I mentioned earlier. We're also ensuring, and this is the government's argument, that they have the vehicles that they need. They're strengthening forensic, the forensics department. But the opposition is saying, look, it is not working. You don't what you're claiming, even with all this investment, why is it that we're still seeing crime increasing?
The numbers are claiming and claiming.
Exactly. So clearly your strategy is not working. That's the opposition's argument.
It doesn't feel like root cause, that they're addressing a root cause. It feels like incident response as opposed to problem solving.
Correct. So that's the opposition's argument. Now, the government is saying, look, to solve crime is not an overnight situation. We need time. We need much more time. We need to do the investment. The opposition also indicated that, look, you can't talk about solving crime if you're not looking at social intervention programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have cut social intervention. The government is saying, hey, we haven't. What we're doing is we have stopped some of the social intervention programs that you were doing because we weren't getting the impact, and we're re-engineering the social intervention program so that it can have a greater impact within the different communities. The gang issue is also something that the government is saying they need to get rid of, because a lot of times what you find is that you have gangs who from different sides who are fighting each other. And what the government is saying, look, we have to get a foothold. We have to strengthen legislation so that we can tackle the problems that we're having with our gangs here in Jamaica. So if we can rid ourselves of the gangs, we can help to reduce the incidences of crime here in the country.
And I always remember. I always remember years ago. It was 1990s when I visited Jamaica. The only one time, unfortunately, I got to visit. I'd love to be back again. But we flew. I was still in Barbados and flew to Jamaica on Air Jamaica back then. And before landing, I always remember there was a video broadcast that came up. Welcome to Jamaica. Before landing, please remove all jewelry.
Oh dear.
All visible.
This was on the plane?
I'm serious. On the plane. Landed. And I was like, what? So, and then once we get there with the people who we were staying with, I was with my brother and somebody else. We were going for a wedding. They said to us, disguise your Bajan accent.
Oh dear.
One. The second thing is I was wearing Dockers and a polo shirt, and they say, nah. Don't walk around dressed like that. Yeah.
And we normally hear individuals say this about Jamaica. And what I will say to individuals, it's simple. It's not as bad as how individuals would portray the country to be, because while we understand that we have a serious issue with crime, and that's a fact, it's there.
Concentrated in areas.
It's concentrated in specific areas. Sometimes gangs warring against each other. You have individuals who have been living in Jamaica and living comfortably, and you just don't go to certain areas. And you don't go to
That's
certain
only any
areas if you
place,
know
to be honest.
exactly. So the argument, it's in any country, you know, that there are certain communities you just don't go to, and especially if they're having their internal warfare, you stay away from that community. It doesn't necessarily mean that as you walk through that airport, you're going to be robbed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
That's not
I
the
must
situation
confess,
in Jamaica.
a few years back, I was working at a bank, First Caribbean bank I was working at the time when they had just merged with CIBC and Barclays. And so my previous lifetime, I used to manage projects that install software in ATMs and what have you. So I would go around the Caribbean and manage projects doing that. But when the time come to go to Jamaica, because usually you had to be at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, running around. This is way back when you had to be
Right.
running around from ATM to ATM to make sure they're all working. And I remember the guy saying, okay, so when we go, we're going to get as close to the door of the bank as possible. Even if we got to go up the steps, we can get you guys there. You jump out, get inside the bank, and then when the time comes, you signal, and we're going to do the same thing, and you jump in. I got to confess, I say, you see this? I can manage Jamaica remotely from Bahamas. And my team in Jamaica was doing this. Oh, they had to do. I was like, you see this? I can't deal with this here. I can't deal with this. But I think such was
He
the
was like ahead of your times with COVID.
yeah remotely, yeah. But it was such the perception of Jamaica, you know, and that whole thing around crime precedes Jamaica.
Yes.
You almost at that time you mention it all in the same breath, Jamaica crime, you know, and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So
It's a reality that exists. And I've had friends who they come, and when they come, they're like, "Hey, it's not as bad as how it is portrayed across the world." Yeah.
Indeed.
And as I said earlier, there are just certain communities that you know you stay away from, and especially if they're having their internal issues, you don't go to those communities. And if you don't have need to go there, then don't. But it doesn't mean that as you step on the street, the possibility of you being killed or robbed would be high. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it to say all is well, because it's there. You see, we have our challenges as it relates to crime, and it's, you know, the number of individuals murdered thus far this year is particularly high, but it doesn't necessarily mean that once you walk from that plane into the country, you're going to be killed. I would say no, that's not the situation.
But
That's good news.
We can't, you know, we can't part Jamaica in that particular side of the coin, because you know there is another side of the coin where Jamaica has given us some fantastic icons of the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and I think in particular, we come to music icons in a bit, but there's something sporting that happens in Jamaica that the nation is
Yeah.
getting right beyond the rest of the Caribbean. And it would be good for us to really understand how that is working. You know, how is that machinery churning out not just athletes, but world-class athletes over decades.
Summer and Winter Olympics too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's simple.
yeah, gotta go on to the winter this year, yeah.
Three bobsled teams.
It's simple.
Yeah.
I think the major strategy that we have employed is that we start from very early. We have a very good program within the high schools that would develop these athletes. And some would go as far as the primary school. So you start from a very early age. You have a very good sporting program within the schools. We have a very good national program that we have. And also as it relates to sports, we have our Grace Issa Boys and Girls Championship. And you have all the schools coming together and doing the different sporting activities.
Yeah.
And then from that, when they finish high school, from the high school, they go into the university, you also have a very good program. So you find that from a very early age, we are looking for the talent, and we're ensuring that right throughout high school into university, we're developing that talent, and then we put them as part of the national team. And I think that is the simple strategy. You start from very early, you develop these individuals, and they continue to hone the skills that they have to become world-class athletes. Very simple.
So is there a homegrown coaching program where, you know, people are scouting across the nation looking for the talent of the next generation?
Yes. Yes. So what you find is that even these coaches, they will go to the high school events, and they will start to scout for the different individuals, and they recognize the talent, and then they will approach those individuals and bring them as part of the different clubs that
Clubs. I was
exist.
gonna say is their club
Yeah.
system.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
that's
So you
because
have
I
the
think
club
that's
system
important.
also, right? So you have the club system, and also what you find, even from the side of the coaching staff, you have a very good program that you have junior coaches that will develop themselves as part of the club. So even if the main coach should leave, you have other coaches that will take over the program and
Take
continue. So
over.
it's a very rigorous system that we have developed over the many years that
Yeah.
is working for us.
One of the things that I really admire about your athletics program from primary and secondary school is the support of parents. I think I saw one of the secondary school, into
Yeah.
school session.
Jumps.
The amount of parents and just, I want to say, ordinary Jamaicans that went to that along with
Yep.
the school kids was
Phenomenal.
phenomenal. Now, I could tell you straight, in Barbados, the only people that ain't students there are predominantly is the
Teachers.
teachers.
Oh, no.
The
So,
parents don't go and so it's interesting to watch because I think as much support as you might have financially and through the club system, it will all come to naught without support from the public
Yeah.
who getting behind the kids, getting behind the clubs and what have you. And but once well into school sports, then nobody looks at athletics really on a national level in Barbados in any great detail. Nobody checks
I
it.
think a much bigger thing to look at is that many of the parents, while they're very supportive of their children, they also understand that you can make big money from
It's a
sports.
pathway.
Yeah.
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 There's a
And
pathway.
there is a clear pathway, and we have had several athletes that we have looked on. Let's look at Usain Bolt, for example. He's no longer in active sports, but he's doing very well in other areas, and his investment in the country continues to show, not only in the country, but in the world. And he's now in real estate. That's one of the things that he's focusing on, and he's still the brand ambassador for Digicel here in Jamaica. And you have many athletes who are brand ambassadors for many of the different corporate companies here in Jamaica. So the parents recognize that.
And we
you
see him
can
on
make
ads here in
money
the
from
UK
sports.
almost every day. He's on Virgin
Virgin
Money and
Money.
all kind of
Yep.
stuff here in the UK as well. So
Exactly. So they recognize that the money that you can gain from sports is actually a very lucrative business. And the parents also recognize that there is talent in that area from their child or their children. They are going to push to ensure that they give the support that is necessary for them to be part of the national program.
that's the support that I saw when I saw this stuff there. It was just amazing. I thought back to not my days at into school sports because I was not very good at running, no anything like that.
Let's not talk about that.
But when you did go to into school sports, you recognize it was all students.
Yeah.
And not parents. And even in general, when you think about sports and stuff, football, netball, that kind of thing. I mean, and perhaps guys in the audience can tell me how it is, perhaps in Trinidad, it's in Vincent and St. Lucia. Now we got people watching there too. I could tell you, you don't find parents at anything like that at all.
No,
Like,
not in Jamaica.
even football finals and stuff at the stadium empty. It's just a couple of teachers. You Phil, you could talk about volleyball and that kind of stuff.
The
Parents
parents
don't
generally
go to-
outside waiting to pick you up.
Yeah, parents don't go to nothing.
Ain't
So
even
man,
coming in.
well, you're lucky even if they kind of pick. Yeah, you had to catch your bus and go along home afterwards and try and get here before 7 o'clock. But, that's the kind of thing. So it's amazing to see the support in Jamaica, and I think the support as well as the investment is also one of the things. And as you say, because the support infrastructure sees the potential pathway for some of the kids and what have you. So it's good to see.
One of the other things that you would recognize too is that when you look at the high schools, there is great competition among themselves. So the high schools want to do well. And you will have individuals who, especially from the traditional high schools, those who would have left, they are still supporting the program because they want to continue to see their school do well. So the investment is there. So they may not necessarily get all the investment from the government, but they have a strong program for those who would have left to invest in the sporting program that exists within the schools so that
Okay.
they can continue to do well. So that is also something that we have done very well
Good
over the many
point.
years.
Good point. Yeah.
And what's the you mentioned the infrastructure there just now? What's the infrastructure like across the nation to enable all of this activity to happen? Is that, do you see the government continuously investing? You can see the plan is working, and they're happy to pour money into to sports.
Yeah. So sports, the investment is a big thing here in Jamaica. We have different entities that the government will provide the funds to, and then they in turn will filter down the funds to the different entity. We have the Chase Fund, for example, where taxes from lottery goes to health, arts, education, sports. So that's part of it too. We have, for example, the Social Development Commission that, sporting clubs in the different parishes, they can apply to them to get funding. So you find that the government and private sector also will pump resources in the different areas to ensure that from the local level, there is funding, from the school level, there's funding, and from the national level, there's funding also provided.
Uh, Many people across the region say, "Whoa! Imagine what it would be if you had a Caribbean team at the Olympics." So you might want to answer politically correctly here. Do you think Jamaica would be in favor of a Caribbean team?
No.
I had to ask, I had to.
We would include the Maroons as well.
There are many things that we are happy to join with, but I think that Jamaicans, considering the successes that we have achieved as it relates to sports, they would not want to look in the direction of having a Caribbean team because we are doing so well.
Yes.
And can we look at West Indies cricket and what is happening there?
Oh, don't let me go there. But let me let me widen that conversation though. Why is it, and maybe perhaps you can tell me if it is, why is it then has Jamaica not looked to lead the Caribbean in this area and create a kind of Caribbean center of excellence and bring in athletes from the region, as opposed to athletes from the region seemingly thinking their only path is a scholarship to North America?
I think we have been doing it, but not on a large scale, and maybe it's something that we need to look at a much bigger scale because you have athletes within the Caribbean and outside of the Caribbean that will come to Jamaica to be trained by our coach, our different coaches here in Jamaica. So it's something that is done on a smaller scale, and maybe it's a good argument you're putting forward that the government should look on how is it that they can develop the strategy that we have to help others here within the
Could be a big money maker.
And it could be a big money maker, but it's something that is happening as we speak. You have individuals who are part of other countries who will join a club here in Jamaica to get the coaching that our Jamaican athletes are receiving.
You had a few British athletes who would have gone to Jamaica to train as well.
Correct.
Sprinters.
Interesting. I good conversation. Mark, you mentioned music icons. You wanted to tackle that one?
Yeah, because we've been we know that Jamaica has given the world the greatest icon in music in Bob Marley. There's no question about that. And we've been seeing a lot of chatter recently going around, not just about Bob himself, but the role that he is playing in the cultural landscape and his recognition, and that all seems to be coming to a head across the population. What are people's thoughts about the whole status and national hero conversation and all that in Jamaica?
Well, I think that Mia Motley called for the argument and the conversation about national hero to be back on the agenda here in Jamaica. I think that for many years we have looked at national hero and who are our national heroes, and we have put them in a bubble to say that these individuals are sacred, and the argument of adding additional individuals to that pool and giving them that order of national hero, you have those who would say, okay, so what is this individual's contribution so great that they should receive the nation's highest honor? You have other individuals who have said maybe we need to redefine what is it or who we call a national hero, because for many years we have looked at individuals who would have fought for independence and fought for the rights of those to have freedom to vote and freedom to move about. Is it that we need to change that approach where who will be a hero, who should we consider a hero, because we're living now in a different era where you may have somebody who's doing very, very well in music. Why can't they be a national hero? You may have somebody who would have contributed significantly in other areas that they can be a national hero. So maybe we need to look at redefining what or who we consider national
But
heroes.
I'm surprised that the Bob Marley question even has to be a question or even a
It is a,
debate.
it is a debate, because individuals will say outside of his contribution to music, what
Music,
else?
Bob.
What?
Yeah,
No, no,
I
I'm
think
telling you.
I think
That's
there's
the
a different.
argument.
Wow.
They put
There's
Bob
a
Marley in
difference
just
in what
that
we can do.
box.
Yeah.
That's true. But you will have individuals who would say,
Hey.
outside of his contribution to music, what else would he have contributed to the country for him to get that status? I'm telling you, that's the
That's really
argument.
narrow, man.
That's a
I
very
understand
myopic
that, but I
view.
think when you
And
think
And
of
that is why
heroes,
individuals, and that's why individuals have said maybe what we need to look at. You have heroes in different segments of society. So yes, his contribution in the music industry would elevate him to the status of being a national hero. And then Louise Bennett, as it relates to culture, her work that she would have done in that era would elevate her to become a national hero based on her work there.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if
individuals
I
are
agree.
saying,
I don't know if I agree with that, because
that what?
I think looking at a hero, you should be not looking at the actions and things that they've done. You should be
Not within
really
their
looking
lane.
at the
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah.
What's
yeah,
the impact
absolutely.
that they've had on culture? What's the impact that they've had on the way
Correct.
people see themselves, on the
Yeah.
way the world sees the nation as well? And a person like Bob Marley, you can't say, well, he's contributed a lot to music, which he has, but what's been the impact of that on Jamaica? You know, I can't go to
Hey,
any
Valerie.
Caribbean restaurant and not see a picture of Bob up
Yeah.
on the wall representing the
You see
Caribbean
part of
culture.
the discussion also as it relates to our impact on the world in terms of music and our culture. You have those who are part of the creative industry who will say that they are more appreciated outside of the country than within Jamaica itself, and it's
Okay.
part of the challenge. So they can go to another country and they can charge a specific amount to perform or to have a show, and promoters will not have a problem paying that money, or individuals or patrons will not have that will not have that problem paying that money to see the artist. Here in Jamaica, they have to be careful because individuals will say, "Oh, boy, you're too expensive. That's too expensive for me to pay to come and see you." Or the
Fair.
value that we place on them is all that great. So yeah, they're important and yeah, they're contributing to the culture, but individuals don't look
But
on a much broader scale and what is it that they're contributing.
But I would almost argue, and I'm sure Jamaicans could take me to task, and this is someone from the outside, but Bob Marley's contribution to the cultural awareness of Jamaica as a people and to the cultural awareness of Jamaica to the entire world, I would almost say is almost up there with Marcus Garvey.
Yeah, and that is the argument for those who are pushing for Bob to be a national hero. The truth is, sometimes we have a very narrow
Yeah, it's a
view
very
of who
myopic
should
view that
be.
you're viewing
It
him as.
is of who should be a national hero. And again, Jamaicans, many have said, look, it's neither here nor there if they become a national hero. Why are we so gung ho about them becoming that? It's just an order, and what's the big deal about it? So, depending on who you're speaking with, they may have different sentiments. So, yes, you award them the order, and then what? What happens after that? I'm not saying that that should have been the argument.
Yeah, but that's the.
you have
Yeah, I get
individuals who
it.
will say it's not a big deal. Okay, you give them the order of national hero, and so what? We still have our
Yeah, I get
challenges.
it. I get
We
it.
still have our problems here in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but,
no, no,
but is
but
the
you can-
purpose of awarding someone a hero to solve a problem? but,
He's a hero, but I still can't pay my light bill, so what that do for me?
No. We can't look at it. At least I don't think we should look at it through that lens. I think Bob
You're on
Marley,
mute, Sanjay.
Bob Marley has to be discussed from a global level and come down, not
Yes.
from a local level and go up. And I think that's the error of judgment that sometimes we make.
I agree with you. It's unfortunate that we have that myopic view towards, the whole idea of national hero awarding this individual the country's highest honor. The problem is you will always have individuals disagreeing, anybody that we put forward to be a national hero, you will have that argument. Because even when Rihanna got that award or that honor in
It's
Barbados,
split opinion.
you had Jamaicans here who were saying, look, you're putting enormous pressure on Rihanna because what you don't know what will happen a couple of years down the line, and will
Well,
she embody what a national hero should be?
some might say she already follow that with
Yeah, man.
the image of
Yeah, Martin
the
Luther.
image of Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again,
Disrespecting somebody else's hero is what.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
So I mean, it's always going to be a contentious issue as far as I'm concerned.
yeah.
It will be. It will be. So look, I mean, you've given us some fantastic insights, but the one that we haven't touched on really is the reality of COVID in Jamaica as it stands. and
Indeed.
I think I saw 75% of communities in Jamaica now grappling and dealing with COVID. Tell us about what's happening on the ground.
So currently, what is happening with COVID, while we have not confirmed that Omicron is here,
Man.
the health ministry they have been very clear. The health ministry has been very clear. While we have not yet confirmed, we are pretending as if it's here. So what happened is we had a traveler who left Jamaica, a visitor, went back to the UK, and when she went to the UK, she tested positive for the Omicron variant. So the Ministry of Health made the announcement and in essence indicated that we're of the belief that it's here. We recently acquired a genome sequencing machine, which will now enable us to test for the different strains, because prior to us having that machine, we had to send samples to CARFA, and CARFA is taking forever.
CARFA inundated at the moment.
The samples, correct. So we are now, I think from Friday of last week, we are now testing for the different strains. On Monday, which is tomorrow, we should know or confirm that Omicron is actually here in the country. Now, the argument, depending on which side of the political spectrum you fall, individuals are saying that the Prime Minister should should adjust the measures. So leading up to the Christmas holidays,
to be stronger, or
no. So what they want, in essence, for it to be stronger. So we are under curfew. We have been under curfew for close to almost 2 years. COVID first came here in early March of
2019.
2019, right? So March is almost upon us, and we would be under the measures for approximately 2 years.
Are kids at school?
Right. So we have recently reopened schools, and individuals, the doctors have been saying we probably should hold back on reopening schools because the virus, as we recognize, the positivity rate is hovering a little over 50 to 60% daily.
Yeah.
So recently we had reopened the entertainment industry. That's in July of last year, and we recognized that the numbers started to shut up. The government curtailed the measures. They put a ban on parties, so we can't have parties now in Jamaica again. The gathering limit, they made some adjustments to that, and the numbers went down. So we were seeing, we were hovering just before the Christmas holidays, 5%, 3% positivity rate daily.
Right.
Since post-Christmas, we recognize that the numbers, and based on the mapping, because the Ministry of Health did indicate that based on what we're seeing, the numbers will shut up. So our curfew is now at 10 p.m. We still are not able to have parties. The gathering limit is still restricted, I think, in public spaces to 10. And if you're having like funeral events, I think you can have up to 50 individuals, of course, following the protocols. Because the numbers are getting out of control, the doctors and other individuals in certain circles are calling for the Prime Minister to control the measures, maybe change the curfew time back to 8 o'clock because it's now at 10. And also, some individuals have been saying we may need to go back into lockdown. The Prime Minister is saying, look, we can't afford for that to happen. We can't go back into lockdown. It's not sustainable. Our economy cannot manage it. We have to learn to live with it. And as Mia Motley is saying, she is recognizing that it's a marathon. We have to pivot to the changes that we are recognizing. And the Prime Minister is saying, we have vaccines. We have unlimited supplies of vaccines. Go and get vaccinated. The challenge that we're having is only 22% of the population would have been vaccinated.
Well,
So the program virtually would have
20%.
stalled.
still,
That is
yes.
small, man.
Despite us
The
having,
spoilage rate must be
yeah,
high there on the
yeah.
vaccines.
So we had to dump quite a bit of the vaccines already. So
Wow.
what the Ministry of Health is now doing is that they are ensuring that we don't import too much where we don't have to distribute it to the population. But the people are
Yeah.
just not taking the vaccine for, for several
Wow.
reasons. That's what is happening in the world. You have the
Across the world, yeah.
who have many have said many different things. And what is even worse now, what is happening on the international scene is that because you have individuals catching the virus, even though being fully vaccinated, Jamaicans are saying, well, boy, if you're going to get the virus, even with being vaccinated, then why should I? And the Ministry of Health is trying to explain to
It's
them
impact
that
of the virus,
the
yeah.
possibility of you being hospitalized if you're vaccinated is way less. And we need
Yeah.
to keep down the level, the number of individuals who are
Critical
hospitalized.
hospitalizations.
So
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now, what we find happening is that we're out of COVID beds in the hospital. We have to be repurposing other wards
Other wards,
to
yeah.
have individuals who are COVID positive being admitted to the hospital. So it's putting a strain on the hospitals. And in addition, you find a lot of the healthcare workers now are out with COVID. So that's also a challenge that we're facing here in the country as we speak. But the Prime Minister have said, look, we are not going back into lockdown. We need to learn to live with COVID.
Yeah.
We want to take the vaccine, and that's where we are headed. That's what we want, for
Well,
people to take the vaccine.
Well, you're gonna have a tsunami of Omicron just now because I know the tourism product is open, and as of Thursday, the UK is dispensing with probably 90% of its protocols.
Be
So
done
no
with
more,
COVID.
Yeah.
no more masks necessary in school, in work, only on public transport. And that's at the discretion of the owners of that public transport as well.
Yeah.
And we just moving around. So I would expect that tsunami is going to hit the Caribbean on the airplanes very, very, very shortly. Because I don't even think do you need to even test to get on the planes? Yeah, I don't even know if you.
For Jamaica, you have to. We have 72 hours that you have to present
Yeah.
a negative antigen or PCR test, and then you have to apply. If you are a visitor, we have a website that you have to apply to get permission to enter the country. If you are Jamaican, there's another website that you have to apply to get access into the country. But we all understand the challenges with the antigen test because you can test negative. It doesn't necessarily mean that when you eventually arrive, you are not positive. You know, and that's part of the challenge. Some individuals have said maybe the government needs to ask for a PCR test, you know, as opposed to asking that you either have antigen or PCR.
Yeah,
so they have a
rapid flow,
choice.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of the discussion. But the tourism industry is saying, look, we have been devastated. We can't afford to put tighter measures in place because we need the tourists to come to the country because we need the revenue from that also.
And
Go ahead, Phil. Go ahead, Mark.
No, I was going to say, and this question here, because we know, you know, the whole issue and conversation around health has been captured and taken up by COVID, but there are other diseases within the community, and how has that been playing out, or what does the profile of that looks like in Jamaica?
It's a serious challenge that we have now. And just last week, the health ministry put out an advisory that they're only accepting emergency cases. So other diseases that we have, the non-communicable diseases, the hypertension, the diabetes, the challenge that you have is that individuals could possibly, the situation could possibly get worse because we're not tending to those individuals because we're focusing on COVID and emergency cases only. So we have had instances where individuals with other problems, they have their surgeries to do and the surgeries are postponed indefinitely.
Yeah.
So we understand the ripple effect that will
knock-on
cause,
effect, yeah,
and the knock-on effect that will have a number of months to come. But we can't. Right now the hospitals are burdened, and we just cannot tend to the other individuals that are, you know, would have cases that are not considered emergency, and that's the unfortunate thing. So some Jamaicans are saying, "Boy, if you get sick now." We'll probably be in some serious problems getting into the hospital.
Imagine.
Wow. Well, look, I thought it was so good having you in, Sanjay, to hear about what's happening normally we were planning to go across the Caribbean, but having you in and your knowledge, we just kept it in Jamaica. So, and I think the audience appreciated it as well, because we always say we need to get into Jamaica and find out what's happening. So it's been great. Thanks Emil for stopping by. Phil, you were going to add something?
I was just going to ask you one quick question.
Sure.
Right? Because you say you work in radio as well.
Yes.
But I've recently started really appreciating an artist called Chronics. Right?
Yes.
So I'm looking for...
I'm feeling a reggae, man. I can tell you that now.
But seriously,
Listen
to this guy. Yeah, incredible. Lyrically, musically, this guy's another level, honestly.
Really good. I agree with that. And just his lyrics and what he's about.
Yeah.
He's also highly respected here in the country.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't expecting less. But I was going to ask, who would be the top 3 artists?
Ooh, you put the guy in trouble.
That I should be tuning into.
You're going to put me in trouble as it relates to that, because it depends on what you want to listen to. Is it from a cultural side where... or
conscious
lyrics.
lyrics.
From the conscious lyrics.
Don't get him a dub. He ain't a dub and dance. Don't care he there. Just put he up in the reggae vibe.
He want light up and fill the room with consciousness.
Yes.
Well, if it's from that aspect, then I could say you Coffee.
Okay.
He's also doing very well.
Coffee's nice. I like her.
Yeah.
And Coffee, as you said, Chronics is also a good one. Taurus Riley, I would say, for me, would be the top 3 right now.
Right.
Yeah. I might get in trouble because you have other individuals.
I train some raw man, man. You gotta train some raw man for you. I think he would be a good raw man, man.
For Romain Virgo, he dabbles between conscious and also the dancehall.
Mm-hmm.
But he more leans to the side of the conscious lyrics.
The conscious.
Don't want anything unconscious.
No.
that would knock me out.
That might be you after you fill up the room. I say Philip can go and visit Kwame just now. I say that. No, it's been fantastic having you joining us, Sanjay. Really appreciate it. A new friend of the living room. We can definitely have you back some more if you're willing to give some of your time.
Anytime.
Yeah, indeed. Listen, we saw West Indies win yesterday, minus the Universe boss. How's Jamaica feeling about that? I see it doesn't look like he's gonna get to bow out at home.
No fear.
While they would have won, I think that largely Jamaicans have gotten have taken the approach that they're not so happy at all with West Indies, and how they have approached, and there's issues as it relates to the selection panel and who they are selecting, and depending on where you fall, different Jamaicans will have different perspective as it relates to what the West Indies team is doing. You have individuals who have said, look, you need to scrap the entire team and start afresh, because we have gone down the road of trying to change the selectors and doing all of that, and we're still seeing the same problems where West Indies is not doing so well. So and people are not so, a few Jamaicans may not be so pleased that Chris Gayle is not included, but again, Chris Gayle would have indicated that, look, I am retiring, I'm on my way out. Jamaicans are not so gung-ho on whether he should be included or not. I think they are more so focused on, look, it's time we may need to scrap that entire team. We need to go back to the drawing board because we're not doing something right.
Y'all in developing your own team out there, huh?
I will tell you that you have individuals who have said maybe it's time we need to look.
Oh, you see that there now?
I know
see that now?
So that's part of the argument that you have individuals putting forward. But largely, you have some individuals who have lost confidence in the West Indies team. Some have lost confidence in the selectors. And some have said, let's just scrap the team and start afresh because we're not doing something right.
Now what y'all need to do is to help them to see the athletics blueprint from Jamaica and how that can be applied across into West Indies cricket.
Share that with us. Don't keep it and develop your own international Jamaica team now, Share that with us.
Cassava.
Gotcha.
That's a lot of fun.
Indeed. But look, Sanjay, thank you so much for joining us here on the living room. It's been a pleasure. Guys in the audience, thanks, Sanjay, for stopping by and sharing all things that's happening in Jamaica with us. It's
Thank
been
you.
indeed a pleasure. Thanks a lot, man.
Anytime. Thank you.
We appreciate
Anytime.
it, man. Thank you so much.
All the best. Okay.
You too.
bye-bye.
Thanks.
That was Michael asking if I know here about Chronics. No, I know here about him. Listening to him.
Listening, I tell you, Mark, when you feel like disappear, you know.
I know.
You know the man out there will call me.
Yeah,
Up them peak, man.
And the man out there, so the room, can't find him in the room. You can just be swimming to it. You can go and swim through it. So look, feel give me on a higher plane of consciousness.
Honestly, this guy, if you watch him on Tiny Desk, NPR Tiny Desk,
I saw that. Yeah.
you saw the Chronic.
I saw it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
No, Chronic's good. Y'all know I'm a huge reggae man. From young, I guess that was dancehall. Reggae I could deal with, but the dancehall stuff, I don't understand what you may saying. So I like, you know what?
Shame on you, man.
I can leave that one. But
That was fabulous, bro. Fabulous.
I agree with Michael there. Yeah, respect the Sanjay boy.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Knowledge.
Comprehensive, man.
Not even bring dates in.
yeah, exactly.
Respect.
For real. I mean, that was so good. Just a understanding, because obviously he's living it, but then because of what he does, and obviously he's very knowledgeable from a political standpoint, and obviously clearly the way how he brought down some of the constitutionality and stuff in the early part of the conversation as well.
Yeah.
Clearly well knowledgeable
And
on
spontaneous.
policy and stuff.
We didn't give him homework. I said, look,
No, we didn't actually. We didn't. I contacted. I spoke to him fairly late in the game, and he was for sure definitely willing to come in. So that was good. That was a really good conversation. You know,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
yeah, indeed.
Calling contribution. Yeah,
That
man.
was a calling. Indeed. No, it was good. It was really good. A good understanding of what's happening in Jamaica. The violence issue is obviously one that still dogs Jamaica from what people think of it, especially in the Caribbean as well. I think we in the Caribbean probably a bit more harsh when we think about Jamaica from a violence perspective than people from outside, you know.
And that's the thing that's really saddened me, because too often in Caribbean conversations, we place that burden on Jamaica heavily. Look, as Sanjay said, we know that's our reality. But for me, we don't look at the alternative well enough and recognize, man, there's a significant alternative here, There really is. The contribution of Jamaica to the world, not the Caribbean, to the world is so significant.
And even as we talk about that reality, I live in Manchester, right? And where I live is okay. That's a mile down the road is Marseille.
Some places you are going.
Marseille, and every time you look at what's happening there, there are gangs. There's
16-year-old got stabbed on Friday.
Yeah, and that is a regular thing.
But people still visit Manchester, right?
Yeah, man.
And I suppose that's the thing with Jamaica as well. New York is still one of the most violent capitals in the world as well. But we don't have a problem going to New York. But we would see Jamaica and then we would pigeonhole it, and then we would probably choose not to go because of fear of that. And we probably need to get out of that mindset when we think about our own Caribbean countries,
I must say, people still visit Marseille. I do. Just to put that out there.
In case anybody's watching. Man, no, this we saw. Fair enough.
No, that's it. Oh, and one of the things I saw this week as well in Barbados, is it Jigs Curtin that passed away this week as well. So condolences to his family. Musical legend in Barbados in the 50s and 60s and what have you, in the musical landscape. And he passed away this week. So condolences to him and his family, the people of Barbados as well.
Yep.
So that was interesting to see. But that was such a good conversation. So much to reflect on.
And I love how he brought down the issue of the Maroons, because I think it was good for people to really hear how that particular issue is playing out on the ground and why it is playing out.
And why. And I really think the whole conversation around sovereignty is the opening gambit
Yes, for
for
something
some
else.
negotiations for something other. It's like, listen, we need to control some of this because, you know, when you book a tour through the Maroon Village, you actually booking it from some company somewhere else
Somebody else
who will
getting
then
money.
drive through the Maroons, who making
Yeah.
all the money. You might stop and buy some arts and craft or what have you, but the bulk of the money when you see the bus load of tourists and stuff passing through, it's actually housed somewhere else. So the question is, how much of that is going back into the community?
And if you come in as the chief, you're going to be saying, you know what, we miss out on the tourist dollars, but we're not missing out on the weed.
Well, exactly, and the weed is a huge one
Yep.
because I think that's the weed is probably, I think Michael is who asked that question. The ganja question is actually going to be a huge one because that's a huge cash cow and a huge agricultural crop, and they're going, but we want control. We want to control more of this.
We want our rightful share.
Exactly, of this because we got the lands, we got the grounds, we got the people. We could do it, and it could be a huge economical bounty for us as a people. And then there's the infrastructure because one of the things Sanjay was saying as well is that they access our schools. They leave their communities and come to our schools. They leave their communities and come to our hospital. So it's like, so what's actually in these communities then? And the infrastructure that's there, should they not have their own infrastructure?
Yeah.
You know, and I can bet you that's part of the conversation as well. And understandable.
The reason I asked about decolonization, guys, interesting. You say what's within these communities, right? Because I'm assuming that within these communities is infrastructure that looks different to what we define as infrastructure in our culture, in our post-colonial culture, that actually looks very much like Europe, or you're a lesser part of Europe. And maybe within the Maroons, there's an opportunity to start to experiment and explore and discover what could alternative infrastructure look like.
Yeah.
What could alternative ways of living and community and governance look like that is decolonized
And also be more sustainable.
and being more sustainable.
The whole thing is it's coming to the Maroons and the way they live their lives, you know. So
Yeah.
it's quite a shrewd move, and it's really one that we got to watch and see how it plays out in Jamaica.
I
Very
think so.
important.
Going to be very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Well, this week can be all about the big speech there in Barbados, so we're going to definitely be waiting to see what happens there. We'll definitely be watching. But look, guys, thank you for staying with us for the better part of the last 2 hours. As usual, we ask you to hit share and bring as many people into the conversation as possible. We are having Caribbean conversations. So do us a favor. Hit share. No. 1, 2, 3. Hit share.
Do it.
Do it? No. Good. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. I
ahead,
hope you do.
Michael. Go on.
And if you haven't already, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube as well. We Global, West Indians Global. You can just follow us there as well. And just be part of our conversation. And that's what we really want to have. A Caribbean conversation on a global scale. And insert ourselves into as many conversations as possible. And be the own curators of our own stories. That's what it's all about. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Until next time.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Yep.
That was good. Enjoyed.
Yeah, man.